guys, thanks for meeting with me today to go over our writing scores off of our map data. So what we're going to do first is log on to map, which y'all already did, and then we're going to go to the edit using conventions mechanics, and you're going to group your kids based off of their writ score from the writing part. So not their overall reading, but you're going to do the mechanics part. So first you have low. What was the lowest y'all had?
I have it's in the 101 range.
101. So then on your low, you're going to fill in on your paper low 101 to 140.
Okay.
What was your low?
147. 145.
Oh, wow. So you have no in the low average. So you're going to start yours in the low to average box. And you're just going to group, like, try 3 or 4 kids in each group because we don't want to go over 5. Stacy, what was your lowest writ score?
Mine was 144, but one just got retested today because they were virtual.
So maybe that box that's empty, you can just leave her there, and
Okay.
then when you get her scores, you can add that.
Okay.
So yeah, just group your kids, 3 to 4 kids in each. If you have a group of 5, that's okay, but we don't want it to be the lower groups. So we're looking at the mechanics. So like, are they, starting a sentence with the capital letter? Are they ending punctuation? Is it the correct punctuation? So those are all the type of mechanics we're looking at. Are y'all noticing anything about your kids?
I'm kind of surprised. I've got 2 girls in my low average group, and they're actually, like in the morning when we do writing prompts, they're usually the 2 that actually write really good sentences, but they're in my low group with 2 of my sped kids. So
It's interesting. So they're able to, do sentence stems and copy and, think of topics to write about, but maybe the conventions of it aren't correct. And it's, one of my boys who usually struggles with sentence writing and, correcting he's actually in the average group.
I still have a Zayden on here, 60.
Mine's on mine too.
That's fine.
So we're grouping these kids to eventually start our tribe time, our intervention time for writing, because we know that writing's low across the district. So if we were to incorporate this intervention time and really focus on, where they need the help on their writing and their mechanics and their grammar, then maybe it will help them later on, because we're building that foundation. Do y'all have a high group?
My highest is average high, and it's Olivia and Gabe, but that's it. Most of my kids are in the average. I've got 6 in average and 4 in low average, and then 2 in my low.
Gotcha. So I went back and forth, and I wanted y'all's opinion on if we should do mechanics or the grammar part. We know coming from kindergarten, they don't really focus a lot on the different grammar pieces because they're just learning their letters and starting to put words together. So starting with mechanics was kind of my thought. Do y'all have any feedback on mechanics versus grammar, like our starting point, and then maybe later in the year, once we get tribe time going and intervention going, we add in some grammar pieces.
I mean, when I'm looking at my grouping, I could see how my average and average high, they could probably benefit from throwing in grammar.
Okay.
They wouldn't need the constant, did you capitalize punctuation lesson.
Mm-hmm.
But I could also see how my low kids, that's obviously what they need to work on.
Yeah.
So maybe mixing it, throwing it in.
Yeah, so how do y'all feel about like having each of us do a different, like maybe you grab the low and someone else does the, average group and then someone does the high, just so we're meeting them and it's not so hard to differentiate, your stations. Because I was thinking stations for each, maybe 3 or 4 stations because we don't need the full 5.
Yeah.
How do y'all feel like that would go?
I think it would go good as long as we group them, ability wise.
Based on what they need and stuff. So.
Gotcha. So we'll start with mechanics. So
what activities do you think we could use to incorporate the time in stations to kind of benefit their time in that station?
Well, kind of going back to like my low kids, they're just identifying which one has a capital letter. Like that's what my low group's working on, finding the capital letter.
Mm-hmm.
So on the back of your paper, you have another thing, and you can write down the activities as we're brainstorming. So just writing in the capital letter. Do you think we could pre-give them like words and they have to unscramble it? Do you think that low group would be able to unscramble?
My low average could, not my
Okay.
low.
So let's add the scrambling sentence in the low average. So the low would just be like copying sentences that are
Basic,
spelled
yeah.
correctly, so
right.
modeling.
Yeah.
There might even be with your low one, maybe some tracing going on.
Tracing, yes.
Or even just circling which is the capital letter and which are the lowercase letters.
Yeah.
So low average, I think we could scramble sentences and then have them rewrite it. Do you think they would be able to pick out like nouns and verbs, like the topic of the sentence? They could just do nouns because that's a teak from kindergarten.
My average group could. I'm not sure about low average. My
Okay.
average group
I
could.
think the average would be able to do nouns and verbs.
Yeah.
And it even says my low average group is ready for identifying adjectives. So,
Okay, well, I'm like looking at this. So, for example, in the low average, this says that they could match the sentence to the picture. So, just matching.
matching the topic.
And then it also says that they would do some pre-writing by locating the topic. So, I guess coming up with the topic of what the story is about.
Or you give them a
And
topic
maybe
and
not
then-
even throwing in like exclamation and question mark yet, just doing the telling sentences.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Since that's such
I
a
mean, my
foundational skill.
lowest kid, his only thing to work on here says identifying a question mark.
Oh.
So, like, just
Interesting.
The symbols,
yeah,
identifying symbols.
that's what my low group could work on, just understanding the symbols.
Yeah. So then moving in towards like the average, they're editing and proofreading. So you could give them a sentence that has mistakes
And fixing
and
it.
they're having to, fix it sentences. It also says contractions. So we will,
Right.
knowing wool, and you are, your.
So practice writing contractions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even identifying them.
Yeah, I think
Matching
the
them.
And then
editing.
breaking them up.
Mm-hmm. Proper nouns, which we've talked about, so names. Identifying the names in the sentence. And then moving into the average high, I see it says apostrophes. So singular possession, or sorry, the possessive. So the ownership apostrophe, more contractions.
Yeah, mine says, to focus on capitalizing the proper nouns
Yes,
and names and
okay.
stuff, so, cause, in their writing, when they're writing, I don't think that they are making that, they know, but they're not doing it automatically.
Using it in context.
Yeah.
And then my highest is in the 181 range.
No,
And she's capitalizing names of geographic locations and
Mhm.
using commas to separate items in a series. So,
Yeah, I don't have any
Listing.
that high.
but that really is all it gives her to work on. So just still proofreading and editing. So she
So
can
those
still,
little writing sheets that we've been doing where they have the long vowels, what I've been having my average high and a few of my average kids do is they have to write a sentence with period, a question mark, and an exclamatory sentence. So they have to have 3 different types of sentences in that. And that's kind of made them slow down and like think about it, like how they're gonna word it and make it mesh together. So that's been good.
That's good. So when we're going to differentiate these, because there's gonna be a high group, but obviously I have a super high. So how do you differentiate from that high group, even the higher, the GT kids? How do you think we would do that in a station? Like, how would we differentiate for her?
Like for your GT kid?
Mm-hmm. Like, how could I make it, interesting for her and fun for her?
I think just any type of research project, having her do the research project and then using that information and writing about it. So like you mentioned the geographical locations, well, have her research a place.
Mhm.
And
Write
that's
about it.
incorporated with social studies right now, what we're doing.
Yeah.
So it's integrating.
And then have her write about it and use what we're learning, these teaks and the mechanics.
So
in
have
the writing.
her create it.
Yeah. And have hers, I feel like she's ready to like go on and branch off into the research aspect of it and then writing like a research paper.
Gotcha. And we already kind of hit on the low kids, just having them use pictures to help
Yeah.
with their topics. I was thinking we could do like I can statements in with these so the kids understand that this is their learning. So what are some I can statements we could come up with for the low kids? Like low, average, put it together.
Oh, okay.
I can
Capitalize it,
identify a
Right,
topic
yeah.
and capitalize the beginning of a sentence.
yes.
I can identify topics and use correct capitalization at the beginning of a sentence. What about the average group?
I think something with the editing would be good.
Okay, so I can
Edit sentences using correct grammar and
I can
punctuation.
edit incorrect sentences.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because, yeah.
I can edit incorrect sentences. And then high.
I can write, I don't know.
I can
what do you-
compose.
Ooh. Like 3 to 5 sentences using
3 to
Paragraph,
5
yeah.
sentences based off a student selected topic.
Yeah.
So let
Right.
them choose. Okay. So when do you guys think, so if we start implementing this, in 2 weeks, once we get all our planning for our stations, when do you think we should meet again to regroup them and see, who's catching on, who still has gaps? How long do you think it should be before we meet again?
If we were to start this in 2 weeks, I would say not until after you get back from Christmas in January.
So January.
Mm-hmm.
And they take the middle of the year
Yeah.
math
Yeah.
test.
Yes.
So maybe after that we can get, get their feet wet with the routines of it all and then go back. So, all right, well, thank you guys. We will meet in January after they finish their math test.
Okay.